30 minutes after my wife boarded a flight to Paris with the man she swore was just a friend, I shut off every card she had. By the time their plane touched down, nothing worked. Not the hotel, not the car, not even a cup of coffee on my dime. I remember exactly where I was when I did it. Sitting alone at the kitchen table in our house in Columbus, Ohio. Same place I'd had breakfast every morning for the last 27 years. Same chair, same view out the window toward the backyard I'd landscaped myself one summer when Diane said she wanted something peaceful to look at. The coffee in my mug had gone cold. I didn't even notice when. There was a wedding photo still hanging on the wall to my left. Diane in that simple white dress she picked out because back then she said she didn't care about anything fancy. Said she just wanted a real life. I believed her. I built that life. With my own hands, most of it. That kitchen, I remodeled it myself last year. New cabinets, quartz countertops, even put in under-cabinet lighting because she said it would make the place feel warmer. I remember standing there one night wiping dust off my hands thinking she'd love it. She never really used it. After she met Greg, that kitchen turned into something else. A place she passed through, not lived in. Meals became takeout. Conversations got shorter, then quieter, then gone. But the signs didn't come all at once. They never do. At first it was little things. New clothes, more time out with friends. Her phone always face down. I asked her about it once, tried to keep it light. She laughed, told me I was overthinking. "Mark, I just need to find myself again," she said. That phrase showed up more and more. Find myself. Like she'd misplaced something and it wasn't in the house we built. Then came Greg. Just a friend, she said. He had a name, a story, a job I didn't care enough to remember. What I did notice was how easy it was for her to say his name, like it belonged in her mouth. The first time she mentioned the trip, she was standing right over there by the sink scrolling on her phone. "I think I'm going to take some time," she said. "Clear my head. Maybe go to Europe for a bit." I looked up from the table. Europe. She nodded, casual, like she was talking about a weekend in Cleveland. "Yeah, Greg's been before. He said he could show me around." There it was. No hesitation, no pause to see how I'd take it. I remember setting my coffee down real slow. "You're going with him." She shrugged. "Mark, it's not like that. He's just someone who gets me right now." Someone who gets me. Funny how that works after 27 years. I didn't yell, didn't accuse, didn't even argue. I just asked one question. "When are you leaving?" "Next week," she said. "Flights are already booked." Already booked. That part stuck with me. Not the trip, not even the man. The fact that it was all decided without me. A few days later, I saw the charge on my account. American Express. Secondary card. The one I'd added for her years ago so she wouldn't have to think about money every time she needed something. 2 business class tickets. Hotels. Tours. $14,000 give or take. She never mentioned the card. Never asked. That's when something inside me went quiet. Not angry, not loud. Just quiet. The morning of the flight, I drove her to John Glenn Airport. She packed light. One suitcase, looked different, younger somehow, excited in a way I hadn't seen in years. Greg met us there. Tall guy, confident, the kind of man who stands a little too close when he talks to someone else's wife. He shook my hand like we were equals. "Appreciate you bringing her, Mark," he said. I nodded. "Take care of her." Diane didn't meet my eyes when she said goodbye. Just gave me a quick hug, already half turned toward the terminal. "Don't worry about me," she said. "I'll figure things out." I watched them walk away together. Not touching, not obvious, but not strangers either. When they disappeared into the crowd, I stood there a minute longer than I needed to. Then I turned around and walked back to my truck. The drive home was quiet. No music, just the hum of the engine and the sound of my own thoughts lining up in a way they hadn't before. By the time I got back, the house felt different. Too still. I set my keys down, took off my jacket, walked into the kitchen and sat in the same chair. That's when I opened my phone. Logged into my banking app. Everything was there. Every charge, every reservation tied to my name. Paris, Hilton Opera, rental car, guided tours. All of it. My thumb hovered over the screen. Just for a second. I'd be lying if I said I didn't hesitate. 27 years is a long time to throw a switch on. I thought about calling her. telling her to come back, or at least to explain. But then I pictured her at the gate, standing next to him, not looking back. And I realized something simple. She hadn't hesitated. Not once. So I took a breath. And I started tapping. One card frozen. Then the next. Canceled the hotel. Canceled the car. Canceled everything tied to my account. Each step quiet, methodical. Like I was closing out a job site at the end of a long day. When I was done, I set the phone down on the table. Sat there for a minute. The house was silent. Then in the distance I heard it. A plane overhead. I didn't need to look up to know which one it was. I leaned back in my chair, stared at the ceiling, and let out a slow breath. She thinks I'll just wait, I said to no one. Then I shook my head. Not this time. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I felt guilty, not exactly. It was more like my body knew something had shifted even if the house still looked the same. I got up around 5, made another pot of coffee, and carried the first mug into my home office at the back of the house. That room had always been mine. Blueprints stacked in one corner, old invoices in file boxes, a framed photo of me and my crew outside a church renovation job in Newark back in 2008. Real work, tangible work. The kind where you could point to something at the end of the day and say, I built that. I sat down at the desk and pulled up the flight tracker. Air France, New York to Paris, still in the air. Outside, the sky over Columbus was turning that pale gray blue it gets before sunrise. Inside, all I could hear was the wall clock and the hum of the little space heater by the filing cabinet. Diane used to complain that room smelled like sawdust and printer toner. Said it gave her a headache. Greg probably didn't know that. Greg probably didn't know a damn thing except how to smile at a woman who was bored and talk like the world owed him a view. I took a sip of coffee and watched the tiny plane icon crawl across the screen. That was the strange part. I wasn't pacing, wasn't cursing. I didn't feel dramatic. I felt focused. The same way I used to feel when a subcontractor missed an inspection and I had to clean up the mess before the city came back through. No room for emotion when something needed to be handled. I opened a legal pad and wrote down the list. American Express, hotel, rental car, tours. Under that, I wrote one more thing. No more access. Then I picked up the phone and called American Express. A cheerful woman answered after a couple minutes on hold. Her name was Melissa. Sounded like she was maybe in Arizona. She asked how she could help me. I kept my voice even. I need to report a card lost, I said, and I'd like to lock down all authorized user access on the account. Also, any pending charges tied to those cards if possible. There was a little pause on her end, typing. Certainly, Mr. Ellison. I can help with that. Are you concerned about fraud? I stared at the flight tracker. Yes, I said, I am. That word sat with me for a second. Fraud. Not heartbreak, not betrayal, not some midlife confusion. Fraud. Melissa walked me through the process, asked me to confirm the last few charges. I did. Paris hotel, airport lounge, car service, one charge from a boutique luggage store in Manhattan that made me shake my head a little. Of course, she bought new luggage for the affair. Would you like replacement cards issued? Melissa asked. No, I said, not yet. A few more clicks, a few more confirmations. Okay, Mr. Ellison, she said. The authorized user cards are now frozen, and I've placed a hold review on current pending activity. Thank you. Is there anything else I can do for you today? I looked down at my list. Yes, I said, there is. By the time I got off the phone, the first step was done. Then I moved to the hotel. Hilton Opera Paris. I had the confirmation number from the account history. The man on the line spoke English with that patient, polished tone hotel people use when they're trying not to sound annoyed. I explained that the reservation had been made on my card, that the card was no longer valid, and that I would not be authorizing any alternate payment. He asked if the guests would be covering the room another way. That's up to them, I said. He paused. Would you like me to note that the booking is not guaranteed? Yes, I said, please do. Next came the rental car, then the guided tour company, then a river dinner cruise I hadn't even known about until that moment. Every call pulled another thread loose. By the end of it, I had my jacket off and my sleeves rolled up like I was doing paperwork for a tax audit. No shouting, no speeches, just one calm sentence after another. At 8:17 a.m. Columbus time, the flight tracker changed. Landed. I leaned back in the chair and looked at the screen. There it is, I thought. Welcome to Paris. The first call came less than 3 minutes later. Diane. I let it ring. Then again. Then a number I didn't know. Then Diane again. I turned the phone face up on the desk and watched it buzz across the wood a half inch at a time. The sound was sharp in that quiet room. Not loud exactly, just relentless, like a trapped insect slamming itself against a window. I picked up my coffee and found it had gone cold again. That made me laugh a little. Not because anything was funny, just because some things apparently weren't going to change. The calls kept coming. I counted 7 before the first voicemail hit. Then another. Then a third. I didn't listen right away. I just watched the notifications stack up on the screen. Missed call, voicemail, missed call, unknown number, missed call, Diane. At some point I got up and walked to the kitchen, stood there by the sink where she'd told me she needed to find herself. Her coffee mug was still in the drying rack from the morning before. White ceramic with a chipped handle. She'd had it for years. I reached for it, then stopped. My phone started buzzing again on the office desk. I went back and sat down. This time I pressed play. Mark Diane's voice came through thin and shaky with airport noise behind it. Announcements. Wheels rolling over tile. Mark, I don't know what's happening, but the card isn't working. None of them are working. The hotel says the reservation's not active. Call me back, please. The message ended. A second voicemail started automatically. This one was shorter. Mark, this isn't funny. Then the third. I heard Greg before I heard her. Tell him to fix it now. He snapped somewhere just off the phone. This is insane. Then Diane again, quieter now. Mark, please call me. I set the phone down. Sat very still for a minute. I'd like to tell you hearing her panic made me feel triumphant right away. That I smiled or felt powerful or got some clean kind of satisfaction out of it. That's not what happened. What I felt first was tired. Bone deep tired. Because once you hear fear in the voice of somebody you spent most of your life loving, some part of your body still responds to it. Even after what they did. Even when you know better. I looked over at the shelf behind my desk where we kept old photo albums. There was one from 2004. Outer Banks. The 4 of us, me, Diane, our daughter Katie, and our son Brent standing in front of a rental house in Duck, North Carolina. Diane had her arm around me, sunburn on her nose hair blowing all over the place. She looked happy in that picture. Not pretending, just happy. I found myself wondering when that woman disappeared. Or maybe worse if she ever disappeared at all. Maybe this was her too. Maybe I just didn't want to see it. The phone buzzed again. I ignored it. I wish I could say there was no part of me that wanted to pick up. There was. For maybe 10 seconds, I seriously thought about it. Thought about hearing her out. Thought about wiring money or calling the hotel back or fixing just enough to avoid a complete disaster. 27 years does that to a man. It trains you to smooth things over, to step in, to carry more than your share because that's what commitment looks like after enough time passes. But then another thought hit me. Not soft, not sentimental. Clear. She didn't just leave with him. She used my money to do it. She planned it, packed for it, smiled through breakfast while the charges were already sitting in my account. This wasn't one bad decision made in a storm of emotion. This was organized. I went back into the transaction history and started scrolling. That's when I saw the older charges. At first I thought I was reading it wrong. Dates from 3 months back. Then 4. A deposit to a boutique hotel in Paris. Tickets for something called a private Seine experience. 2 passes to a spa package. Not last-minute vacation stuff. Planned stuff. Coordinated stuff. I felt heat rise in my chest. Not the wild kind, the worst kind. The kind that comes when embarrassment finally catches up to you. I clicked deeper. There was a charge from a men's store in Manhattan, a concert in Chicago, dinner at a place in Cincinnati Diane, and I had never gone to because she said it was too expensive for one meal. Apparently it wasn't too expensive when Greg was eating it. I leaned forward in my chair and rubbed both hands over my face. How long? I said out loud. No one answered, of course. Just the clock on the wall and another incoming call. I didn't answer that one either. Instead, I opened my desk drawer, pulled out a yellow folder, and started printing statements. Page after page. Dates, times, amounts. Hard copies always made things feel real to me. You can argue with a story, you can't argue with paper. Around noon, I made myself a sandwich I barely touched. Turkey on wheat, chips on the side, same lunch I'd eaten 100 times on job sites. It sat there on a napkin while I stared at the numbers. By then, the missed calls were in the 20s. Most from Diane, a few from Greg, 2 from a French number, 1 from our daughter Katie, which told me Diane had already started trying to build a rescue team. I called Katie back. She answered on the first ring. "Dad." Her voice was careful, adult, measured. Katie was 42, lived in Worthington, taught 5th grade, and had inherited Diane's eyes without any of Diane's nonsense. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm fine." There was a pause. Mom called. I figured. Another pause. "Is it true?" she asked. "About Paris?" I looked down at the papers spread across my desk. "Yeah," I said, "it's true." Katie let out a breath through her nose. Not surprise, more like disappointment, finally getting confirmation. She told me Greg was just helping her get some space. I almost laughed. "Must be crowded over there." Katie didn't laugh. "She asked me to talk to you," she said, "to see if you'd turn the cards back on." "And what do you think?" I heard her shift the phone, maybe moving from one room to another so her kids wouldn't hear. "I think," she said slowly, "that Mom made a choice, and now she's shocked choices cost money." That was the first moment all day I felt less alone. I closed my eyes for a second. "Thanks, kid." "She also said you were overreacting." I opened my eyes again. "That sounds like her." Katie exhaled. "Dad, I'm not telling you what to do. I just don't want you letting anybody make you feel crazy for this." I looked out the office window at the side yard at the old red wheelbarrow tipped against the fence. "I won't," I said. After we hung up, the room felt steadier somehow. Not better, just steadier. By late afternoon, the calls had slowed down but not stopped. The panic had changed shape. Early on, it was rapid fire. Urgent, demanding. By 4 o'clock, the messages sounded different. More strained. Less certain. The last one from Diane that day was almost quiet. "Mark," she said, and for the first time there was no anger in it. "Please. We're at the airport hotel. Greg is trying to figure something out. I just need you to call me." I deleted it without listening twice. Then I turned back to the statements. Because somewhere between the flight landing and the 25th missed call, this had stopped being about a trip. It was bigger than that now. Bigger than Paris, bigger than Greg. What sat on my desk wasn't just proof of cheating, it was proof of planning. Proof that I had been turned into something useful and quiet. A wallet with a pulse. And once I saw that clearly, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't done. By the next morning, I had 3 neat stacks on my desk. Credit card statements in one pile, reservation confirmations in another, printed screenshots in the third. I'd showered, shaved, and put on a clean gray work shirt like I had somewhere to be. Funny thing was, I did. I had somewhere to be in my own head, a place I hadn't visited in a long time. Clear, focused, past the point of pretending. I sat down, opened Diane's old shared iPad, and started going through whatever was still synced. That was where the trip stopped looking like a reckless decision and started looking like a business plan. Their business plan, built on my money. The first thing I found was a calendar entry from 4 months earlier. Paris, finally. No last name, no details, just that little note with a red heart next to it. I stared at it a second, then kept going. There were booking emails, seat upgrades, dinner reservations, a private evening cruise on the Seine, a couple's spa package with champagne. Not one-night stands and bad judgment, not confusion. This was anticipation, planning, little moments of excitement saved and organized. I printed the confirmations and added them to the pile. Then I found the message that made my stomach turn. It was an email thread between Diane and Greg. Nothing explicit in the subject line. Just Thursday. I opened it. A couple lines in Greg wrote, "Just use the old man's money. We deserve one good trip before everything changes." I read it twice. Not because I didn't understand it the first time, because some part of me still wanted the sentence to mean something else. The old man. That's what I was in their private jokes. Not Mark, not her husband, not the man who kept the lights on for nearly 3 decades. The old man. I pushed my chair back from the desk and stood up so fast it hit the file cabinet behind me. For a minute, I just paced the room. 2 steps one way, Turn around, 2 steps back. I felt hot all over. Not dramatic, not explosive. More like something heavy had been set inside my chest and was pressing down from the inside. I thought about all the dumb little things that suddenly rearranged themselves in my memory. The nights she said she was too tired to go out. The weekends she visited friends. The way she stopped asking me how the jobs were going because she already had what she needed from me and didn't feel like pretending anymore. I leaned both hands on the desk and looked down at the papers. "How long did you think I was this stupid?" I said under my breath. That question wasn't really for her, it was for me. Because shame has a way of showing up right behind betrayal. It crawls in and starts asking its own questions. How did you miss this? Who else knew? How many people looked at you and felt sorry for you before you even knew you needed it? I sank back into the chair and rubbed my forehead. I wish I could tell you I stayed hard the whole time, that I never cracked. But sometime around 10 that morning, after too much coffee and not enough sleep, I picked up my phone and found Diane's name. My thumb hovered over it. I thought about calling, not to forgive her, not even to make it easier, just to hear something human in her voice, something that sounded like regret instead of inconvenience. I almost did it. Then the phone buzzed in my hand before I could decide. Another message from her. Not an apology, not really. "Mark, this has gone far enough. We're flying back early, and you need to act like an adult before you make things worse." I read that message twice too. That did it. No apology, no shame. Just a woman stranded in Europe with the wrong man and still somehow convinced I was the problem. I set the phone down and called Tom Reynolds. Tom and I had known each other since high school. He was one of those guys who'd always looked like a lawyer even before he became one. Straight back, crisp haircut, calm voice. He lived in Dublin now, just outside Columbus, and handled family law along with some estate work. We played golf badly twice a year and talked on Christmas if nobody died. He answered on the third ring. "Mark, everything okay?" "No," I said, "but I need legal, not sympathy." That got a short laugh out of him. "Well, that narrows the field. What happened?" So I told him. Not every detail, just the important ones. Paris, Greg, the card, the charges, the cancellations, the messages, the email. Tom didn't interrupt much. Just let me talk. When I was done, there was a short silence. Then he said, "Do you still have all the account documentation? Printed and sorted?" "Of course you do." "I also have the email. The one with the old man line." I blinked. How'd you know I'd mention it like that? "Because men your age don't call a lawyer over hurt feelings," he said. "They call when disrespect finally gets documented." That landed harder than I expected. Tom asked me a series of questions after that. Whose name was on the house? Mine and Diane's jointly. Business accounts. Mostly mine. Retirement. Separate. Credit cards. Primary in my name. Checking account. Joint, but I was the source of most deposits. Any prior legal agreements? No prenup? Any adult children involved in the finances? He made a humming sound in the back of his throat. "Okay," he said. "First, good job not throwing her out of the house. Don't do that. In Ohio, that gets messy fast unless there's a court order or safety issue. Wasn't planning on it. Second, keep every document, every charge, every message. Don't embellish, don't delete, don't threaten. Let the paper do the talking." "I can do that." "I know you can." He paused. "Third, and this is the part you need to hear clearly, what she did may not matter much morally to the court, but financial misuse absolutely matters in negotiation. If marital money or your personal accounts funded an affair that can shift leverage. Not magic. Leverage. Leverage." That was a word I understood. I leaned back and looked at the ceiling. "So what do I do?" "You protect access. You document assets. You stop reacting emotionally in writing. And if you're serious, I can have separation papers prepared by tomorrow." I looked at the stacks on my desk again. I thought about Diane at some airport hotel mad at me for interrupting her vacation. I thought about Greg calling me insane while using my money to sleep beside my wife. Then I thought about something smaller and somehow more painful. A Tuesday in October when Diane had asked if we could skip going out for our anniversary because money felt tight. Tight. I swallowed hard. "Do it," I said. Tom didn't waste time. "Fine. I'll need scanned copies of the statements and whatever messages you think show intent. Keep it factual. No speeches in the email, just documents. Done. And Mark? Shy. Dear. You're allowed to be angry, just don't get sloppy. After we hung up, I got to work. That was the part of me Diane had always underestimated. I'm not flashy, never was. I don't talk big. I don't make scenes. But if there's a mess in front of me, I know how to square it up. I scanned every statement into a folder for Tom. I made a spreadsheet of the suspicious charges. Dates, amounts, vendor names, notes. Business class flights, hotel deposit, luggage, dinner, spa, transportation, all of it. Then I moved money. Not everything, just enough to protect what needed protecting. I transferred my business reserve into an account Diane had never touched, shifted automatic payments, changed passwords to anything tied directly to me or my company, home office access code, cloud storage, utility logins, insurance portal. Each click calmed me down more. By lunchtime, I wasn't shaking anymore. I was just done. Around 1:30, my son Brent called. Brent lived in Dayton, sold forklifts, and had my temper, but more sense than I did at his age. He got right to it. Mom called me too, he said. You okay? Apparently, I'm the villain now. That usually means you finally stopped volunteering. I smiled despite myself. He'd always had that in him, the ability to cut right through nonsense and make it sound simple. She tell you what happened, I asked. She told me her husband embarrassed her in France. I let out a dry laugh. France, that's nice. Then Katie called and gave me the real version. Of course she did. Brent was quiet a second, then said, Dad, I'm not saying burn everything down. I'm saying don't let her rewrite this. That sentence stayed with me the rest of the day. Because that's what Diane was already doing. In every voicemail, every text, every outreach through the kids, she was trying to shift the story. Not I betrayed you, not I used your money, not I lied for months. No, her version was simpler. Mark overreacted. Men like me get handed that label a lot when we finally stop absorbing disrespect and call it what it is. At 3 o'clock, Tom's paralegal emailed the first draft of the separation filing. I read every page. The language was cold, clean, clinical, marriage duration, shared property, preliminary financial terms, temporary restrictions, disclosure obligations. No pain in it, no humiliation, no history. Just consequences. That felt right. I printed that too. Late in the afternoon, Diane called again. This time I answered. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to hear where her head was. Maybe I wanted one chance to hear remorse before lawyers and paper made everything final. Mark, she said the second I picked up. Her voice sounded rough now. Tired, finally. I said nothing. We're at JFK, she said. Our flight just landed. I have been trying to reach you for 2 days. I know. She let out a breath. What the hell are you doing? That question hit me so wrong I almost laughed. What am I doing? I said. You want to try that one again? You stranded me in another country. No, I said. I stopped paying for your trip. There was silence for a moment. Then she lowered her voice. Mark, you're making this uglier than it had to be. That was it. The sentence that burned off whatever softness I had left. Uglier than it had to be. Like Paris with Greg had been the tasteful version. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the wedding photo on the shelf across the room. When are you getting home? I asked. An hour, maybe 2. Why? Because when you get here, I said you and Greg are going to sit down at my kitchen table, and I'm going to show you exactly what ugly looks like. She started to say something, but I ended the call. Then I looked around the office, at the papers, the folders, the organized proof of everything she thought she could hide behind charm and confusion. Revenge, I realized, wasn't shouting. It wasn't revenge in the movie sense at all. It was timing. It was paperwork. And it was making sure that when the truth finally sat down in front of somebody, there was nowhere left for them to put their hands except on the table. They got to the house just after 7. I heard the car before I saw it. Tires on gravel. Car door slamming harder than necessary. Voices outside, hers sharp, his lower irritated. I stayed where I was. Kitchen table. Same seat. Papers stacked in front of me, neat and squared. Coffee mug off to the side, this one still warm. The front door opened without a knock. Mark. Diane's voice filled the house before she even stepped all the way inside. There was no hesitation in it, no apology, just anger and something underneath it, panic she was trying to hide. Greg came in right behind her, dragging a suitcase that bumped against the doorframe. They both looked different. Not relaxed, not glowing from a European getaway. Wrinkled clothes, tired faces. The kind of tired you get when things don't go the way you plan and you spend 2 days scrambling to fix it. Diane stepped into the kitchen and stopped when she saw me already sitting there. "You've got some nerve," she said. I didn't stand up. "Sit down," I said. She didn't move. Greg stepped forward instead. "I think we should talk about what you—" "Sit," I said again this time, looking straight at him. That did it. Something in my tone must have landed because Diane pulled out the chair across from me and dropped into it. Greg hesitated a second, then sat next to her, arms crossed, like he thought that made him look in control. Nobody spoke for a few seconds. The house was quiet again, same as before. Only now it felt different, like everything unnecessary had been cleared out. Diane broke first. "You embarrassed me," she said. "Do you have any idea what that was like, standing there? Nothing working, hotel canceled, Greg having to." I slid the first stack of papers across the table. $14,286, I said. She frowned. "What?" "That's what your trip cost," I said. "Flights, hotel deposits, tours, dinners. That's what you spent." Greg shifted in his chair. "Look, man." I raised a hand slightly. Not dramatic, just enough. "I'm talking to my wife." That word hung there for a second. Diane glanced at Greg, then back at me. "You're acting like this is about money," she said. "It is about money," I said. "It's also about everything else. But let's start with something you seem to understand." I tapped the papers. "That amount right there. That's what it would have cost to fix your mother's roof this spring. The one you said we couldn't afford yet." Her face changed a little at that. Just a flicker. Greg leaned forward. "Okay, that's not fair. You're twisting." I slid the second stack toward him. "That's the timeline," I said. 4 months of charges, hotels, gifts, dinners, spa bookings, all tied to my accounts. He didn't touch it. Didn't even look. Diane did. Her eyes moved across the page slower now. "This isn't what you think," she said, but there wasn't much behind it. "It's exactly what I think," I said, "because it's exactly what it is." Silence again. Then Greg tried one more time. "You can't just shut everything down like that. That's not how this works." I leaned back in my chair and looked at him for the first time, like he was part of the conversation. "That's exactly how it works," I said. "When the cards are in my name." He opened his mouth, then closed it. Because he knew I was right. Diane pushed the papers away. "Mark, this isn't who you are," she said. "You don't do things like this." That one almost got me. Not because it was true. Because it used to be. I nodded slowly. "You're right," I said. "I didn't." Then I reached for the final stack. Thicker, cleaner, printed on better paper. I slid it toward her. "What's this?" she asked. "Read the top line." She looked down. Her lips moved slightly as she read. Then she stopped. "No," she said quietly. "That's a filing," I said. "Prepared this afternoon. Legal separation, temporary financial terms, asset disclosure, all of it." Greg sat back in his chair. For the first time, he looked unsure. Diane looked up at me like she didn't recognize who she was talking to. "You filed," she said. "I started the process," I said. "Yes." "You didn't even talk to me." I held her gaze. "You didn't talk to me either." That landed hard. She looked away first. "This is insane," she said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. "No," I said. "What was insane was thinking you could plan this, pay for it with my money, and then come back like nothing happened." Greg shifted again, trying to recover something. "People make mistakes," he said. I looked at him. "This wasn't a mistake," I said. "Mistakes happen fast. This took 4 months." That shut him up for good. Diane's hands were resting on the table now. I noticed they were shaking just a little. "Mark," she said softer this time, "we can fix this." I shook my head. "No," I said, "we can't." She swallowed. "You're throwing everything away over one trip." I leaned forward just slightly. "You didn't lose me in Paris, Diane," I said. "You lost me the moment you spent my money like I didn't matter." The words sat between us. No yelling, no drama. Just truth. She blinked a couple times like she needed a second to process it. Then she looked around the kitchen, at the counters, the cabinets, the space I'd built. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," I said. "Now you read that. You talk to your own lawyer. and you figure out what your next move looks like without access to my accounts. Her head snapped back toward me. What do you mean without access? I mean exactly what it sounds like I said. Cards are gone, accounts are restructured, anything in my name stays that way. Greg leaned forward again, more cautious this time. You can't just leave her with nothing. I met his eyes. She's not nothing, I said. She's just not funded by me anymore. Diane pushed her chair back suddenly and stood up. This is unbelievable, she said. After everything we've been through, you're just going to cut me off like this. I stayed seated. I didn't cut you off, I said. You walked away. I just stopped paying for it. Her breathing was heavier now. She looked at Greg again like she expected him to step in to fix it, to say something that would put things back the way they were. He didn't. Because there was nothing left to fix. I picked up the last sheet from the stack and set it in front of her. That's a summary, I said. What you have access to, what you don't. Temporary terms. It's fair. She glanced at it, then back at me. Fair, she repeated. Yes, I said, fair. Not generous, not cruel. Just fair. And one more thing, I added. She didn't respond. Your sister knows, I said. And so does our accountant. Her face went pale. You told them. I showed them the numbers, I said. I didn't have to say much else. That was the moment it really hit her. Not just the money. Not just the house. Her version of the story was gone. No more misunderstanding. No more Mark overreacted. Just facts. On paper. In front of people who knew how to read them. She sat back down slowly. For the first time since she walked in, she looked small. Not physically. Just smaller than the version of herself she'd been carrying around. Greg stood up. I'm going to step outside, he muttered. Neither of us stopped him. The door closed behind him. Diane and I sat there in the quiet. Same table, same house. Different life. What about my things, she asked after a minute. I nodded toward the hallway. Packed, I said. Garage. Her eyes widened. You packed my stuff. I packed what was in the bedroom and your office, I said. Clothes, personal items, anything you need right away. You had no right. I didn't throw anything out, I said calmly. I organized it. That word seemed to take the air out of her argument. Organized. That's what this was. Not revenge in the way she expected. No shouting, no broken dishes. Just everything put in its proper place. She sat there for another few seconds, then stood up without saying anything else and walked toward the hallway. I didn't follow. I stayed at the table listening to the soft sound of boxes shifting in the garage a minute later. Greg didn't come back inside. I picked up my coffee and took a sip. Still warm. For the first time in days, I felt something settle inside me. Not victory. Not relief. Just solid. Like I was standing on something that wouldn't move anymore. A few weeks later, the house sounded different. Quieter, sure, but not empty. There's a difference. Empty feels like something's missing. Quiet feels like something painful finally stopped. I noticed it in little ways first. No slammed cabinet doors. No tense silence over dinner. No phone lighting up at the table while somebody smiled at a message that had nothing to do with me. Just the hum of the refrigerator, the creak in the hallway floor outside the bedroom, the local weather guy talking too fast from the TV in the den while I sorted mail. I kept the house. That surprised some people. Katie asked me once, "You sure you want to stay there, Dad?" I told her the truth. Yeah, I said, I built half of it. I'm not the one who should leave. So I stayed. I changed the locks on the home office. Took down the wedding photo, not in some dramatic moment, just one Tuesday afternoon after lunch. I stood on a chair, lifted it off the nail, and put it in a box with some old tax records and owner's manuals in the basement. That felt about right. The separation moved forward fast after that. Tom handled most of it. Diane got her own attorney. There was some back and forth, of course, there always is. A few irritated emails, a few attempts to soften the story, a few lines about emotional overreaction and temporary confusion. But paper has a way of making confusion look less convincing when there are dates attached. The money trail did what it needed to do. Not magic like Tom said, just leverage. She didn't walk away with nothing. I didn't try to destroy her. That part mattered to me more than I expected. I wanted consequences, not cruelty. I wanted out clean. I wanted my dignity back without becoming somebody I'd have to explain to my kids later. Brent told me one night over burgers in Hilliard. That's why this is killing her, you know. What is the fact that you didn't lose your mind, he said. You just stopped carrying her. That was probably true. Greg disappeared fast. Far as I know, once the free ride ended, so did whatever grand romance they thought they had. I heard through Katie, who heard through Diane's sister, that he wasn't around much after the second week. Hard to play the worldly rescuer when you're splitting airport hotel bills and borrowing somebody else's Uber account. I won't pretend that didn't make me smile. Not a big smile, just enough. The strangest part was how normal my life started to feel once the chaos cleared. I went back to work a little more. Not full-time, but enough to keep my hands busy. Helped an old client in Westerville redo a back porch. Spent a Saturday morning at the lumberyard comparing decking boards with a guy named Ron, who still wore the same seat cap he'd had since 1998. Drank diner coffee from a thick white mug at Tommy's on Route 3. Started sleeping through the night again. One Friday, I took my truck up to Indian Lake and went fishing by myself. Diane used to say fishing was boring. Said she didn't understand how any grown man could sit that long and call it relaxing. That morning, the air was cool, the water was flat, and nobody asked me for anything. I sat there with a line in the water and thought, this is what peace actually feels like. Not candles, not wine in Europe, not somebody talking about finding themselves in a hotel lobby. Just peace. Simple, quiet, earned. That doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It did. Some nights I'd still walk past the bedroom and catch myself remembering things I didn't ask to remember. The sound of Diane laughing in the hallway years ago, her asleep on the couch with a blanket half on the floor. The time we got caught in a rainstorm in Gatlinburg and had to run back to the car like teenagers. You don't live that much life with somebody and switch it off clean. Anybody who says otherwise is lying. But the hardest part in the end wasn't losing her. It was realizing I'd been losing her for a long time while still paying the bills, making the repairs, and telling myself that stability meant love. It doesn't. Not by itself. Respect matters, maybe more than people want to admit. And once that's gone, the rest starts rotting underneath it. Diane called a few times after the lawyers got involved. Not many, just enough. Once from a number I didn't know. Once late on a Sunday night. Once on a Wednesday afternoon while I was buying mulch at Lowe's. I didn't answer any of them. She left one voicemail I listened to by accident because it started playing through my truck speakers before I could stop it. Her voice sounded tired. Not panicked like Paris, not angry like the kitchen table. Just tired. Mark, she said, I know I handled things badly. I know that. I didn't think it would end like this. I deleted that one too. Because that was the thing. It didn't end in Paris. It ended long before that. Maybe the first time she looked at my work, my loyalty, my steady presence, and decided it was just background noise. Maybe the first time she used what I provided to build a separate life in secret. Maybe the first time Greg called me the old man, and she didn't stop him. Doesn't really matter which one it was. By the time they boarded that plane, the marriage was already hanging by a thread. I just happened to be the one who finally cut it. A month after she moved out, Katie came by with banana bread and sat with me at the kitchen table. She looked around the room and said, "It feels lighter in here." I looked around too. Same cabinets, same counters, same under-cabinet lights I installed myself. But she was right. It did feel lighter. I think I forgot I said that peace and loneliness aren't the same thing. Katie smiled at that. No, she said, they're not. We sat there a while longer talking about nothing important. School stuff, Brent's latest sales trip, whether Ohio State had any chance that season, regular life. That was the gift, really. Regular life. No drama, no performance, no pretending not to see what was right in front of me. Just truth. And once I had that, I didn't need revenge anymore. I'd already gotten the part that mattered. My name back. My footing back. My self-respect back. Some people don't miss the love when it's over. They miss the access, the comfort, the account, the safety of knowing somebody decent will keep absorbing the damage. When that access disappears, reality gets loud fast. If you've ever been in a place where your kindness got mistaken for weakness, then you already know what I mean. And if this story stayed with you, I'd be glad to hear your thoughts. Take care of yourself and don't ignore what your peace is trying to tell you.